name is Mike Ukula. I'm the project manager for the Indiana Department of Transportation on this Flex Road contract. And I again just appreciate y'all taking time out of your busy schedules and coming out to see our presentation and learn about the project and also provide some hopefully um, productive feedback for us. So we've got our consulting firm Parsons here to again present an overview of the project and or the project schedule. And without further ado, we've got Mindy and Toby, so I will hand it off to Mindy to start.
Thanks so much, Mike. I appreciate that very much. And you'll see here on the screen the folks that you'll be hearing tonight. As Mike said, that's myself. I'm the Public Involvement Director at Parsons. So we've been leading communications and public involvement on the Flex Road project. And I'm joined by Toby Randolph. He's the project manager for Flex Road. He's also with Parsons, and Toby is going to provide a nice overview of all of the improvements that are planned and give a deeper dive into some of that information. So here's a nice overview of some of the things that we'll be covering tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about how the public hearing will operate this evening. We'll give you a project overview. We'll touch on those environmental impacts that are associated with the project. Again, as I said, Toby is going to take a closer look at all of the improvements that are planned. We'll talk about TSMO strategies. That's shorthand for Transportation Systems Management and Operations Strategies. You'll find out what all of that mouthful means. We'll also talk about next steps. And then, of course, we'll take any comments that we may have from folks who have signed up to speak this evening. All right, let's begin with that public hearing overview. This is our second of two public hearings. We're glad to be in Illinois tonight. We were in Indiana last night at Purdue Northwest, had a nice crowd there, and heard some verbal comments from folks who joined us in the room. We have an open house period that started this hearing this evening, and we will also wrap up with an open house period that will follow any verbal comments this evening. Also, for anybody who would like to sign up to speak, we still have an opportunity to do so. People were able to sign up as they joined us this evening. They can also decide to do so this evening as they listen to the presentation. If something comes to mind and you decide that you want to share some comments and you would like to do so verbally, we'll make sure that you have an opportunity to do so tonight. One thing I do want to point out, and it's important to flag, is that we will not be providing responses tonight to any of those comments or questions. What will happen is those are all part of the formal comment period. All of those comments will be documented and responses will be provided in what we call the final environmental document. That's a document that should be available late this year. All right. We do have folks who are joining us with our streaming option tonight, and we're glad to have you joining us to hear more about the Flex Road project. We just want to let you know that cameras and microphones are disabled, and that is what the intention is. However, you are able to leave any comments that you might have, and those will become part of the formal comment period. How you will do that is just by utilizing your Q&A function. We have a little diagram up on the screen that helps you locate that. If you do decide to leave a comment through the streaming option, please do include your first and last name along with your comment so that we can document that appropriately. And again, a response will be provided in that final environmental document. And if you want to sit with the information you're hearing tonight, take a little bit of time to run through it, consider any thoughts, feedback that you have. We have some more time available in that formal comment period, and you can always easily go to the project website, indianaflexroad.com, and leave your comments there. So we did have a lot of efforts to make sure that people were aware of this public hearing tonight, so we could have people who are interested in the project come out and join us. We have done multiple e-blasts through the project distribution list. We have also sent out text alerts to those who have signed up for those. We've had media releases. We have posted flyers at nearly 20 community locations. We also shared those flyers with our stakeholders, invited them to print and post in their buildings, organizations, share digitally, whatever might work best for them. We also had legal notices in 2 newspapers. Those legal notices appeared twice. They appeared initially 2 weeks out from the hearing, and they repeated again last week, and those notices were in the Times of Northwest Indiana and the Daily Southtown paper. And of course, we do have social media channels. We use those to share information like these public hearings. And hopefully you saw some of the many posts that we had there talking about not only the hearings, but the public comment period. All right, so that's a nice segue into our formal comment period. That started back on July 8th when we made the draft environmental document available for public review and comment. And the formal comment period will run through Friday, August 8th. It's about 30 days. And we have a list there on the right of the screen about all of the channels that you can use to comment on the Flex Road project. That can be verbal comments tonight for anybody who signs up to deliver those verbal comments. It could be written comments that are left in the comment box tonight. You can use those joining us through the streaming function, that Q&A function, to leave a comment there. You can also email comments, mail comments, use the project website, or simply use NDOT customer service. NDOT for You is a great service, and you can call NDOT, or you can log on to the NDOT for You website. Just make sure that you mention Flex Road when you leave your comment. And again, you do want to keep this date in mind. The end of the formal comment period is Friday, August 8th. We need your comments by the end of that deadline if you want to see that comment reflected in the formal record, which is part of that environmental document. So we mentioned that document a lot. What is the document? What can you expect from that? It is a very thorough, dense document, very lengthy. It is over 830 pages long. We conducted and did what is called a categorical exclusion level 4. That's the type of environmental documentation that was required for this project. It's a lot of information, but basically what you need to know about this document is it's all of the work of the project team kind of captured. So all of the analyses that were part of the process, all of the consideration of preliminary alternatives, taking a look at what those would look like, refining those, looking at the benefits and impacts of each of those, identifying a preferred alternative. All of that work is included in that draft environmental document. It seems a little daunting when I say over 800 pages, but it's really easy to find the information you're looking for. It's listed on the project website, and all of the various parts and pieces are clearly labeled. So if there is an area of interest, it's very easy for you to go to the project documents page, see the list of items that are covered there, and check out what you may be interested in. We also have, in addition to those locations with a copy of the draft environmental document, we added on a couple of more locations with the Lincoln Community Center and the Lansing Public Library. And we have handouts available at those locations that are a nice summary of what's going on with the Flex Road project, where we are in the process, an overview of those improvements, and we also outline next steps and a timeline. So basically, the information we're covering tonight in this presentation will be covered in a nutshell in that handout. We have copies of that handout available at any of these locations. That also includes a comment form in that folded handout, and we have a box where if folks want to go ahead and take the time to fill out a comment form on site, they can do so and go ahead and deposit it in the box. We'll come back on the Monday following the end of the comment period on August 11th. We'll pick those up. And again, that's part of the record then, and that comment is recorded in the final environmental document. So that brings us up to date on the hearing tonight. That brings us up to date on the formal comment period. So now we're going to take a closer look at Flex Road. It's very important when we're talking about Flex Road to get a sense of exactly where this project is and what it covers. So this is along I-80 and I-94, also known as the Borman Expressway. This is a very busy corridor. In fact, it is the busiest interstate corridor in all of Indiana. We cover about 14 miles here. So we take you from the I-65 interchange in Indiana, head west to the 394 interchange in Illinois in Cook County, and that is your project corridor. Here's a flavor snapshot of what you see on the Borman. This is a pretty typical image of what you can expect. There is a lot of congestion. There are a lot of vehicles using the Borman, and there's a lot of truck traffic on the Borman. So every day we have around 160,000 vehicles relying on the Borman and using the Borman for their daily commutes. Out of that traffic and out of the 160,000 vehicles, about 30% of the traffic is truck traffic. So that's a big number. And in addition to that, Indiana is actually the state that has the most traveled miles by trucks across the nation. So Indiana's leading in truck traffic. When it comes to the nation, Borman has certainly seen its fair share of that. One other thing to point out when we talk about this snapshot of the Borman is not only what we have in place now, but some of the constraints that we have because of the Borman and where we are in this process. So the Borman was built back in the 50s. It has been widened over the years, usually about 5 lanes now, 4 to 5 lanes is what you'll find on the Borman. Not only that, but you will find development nudging up right beside the roadway. So that includes commercial development and also homes, residential development. So when you look at this corridor and you look at possibilities that are reasonable and feasible, you must consider what's in play here. And so we really, when we started looking at solutions to improve the situation, we wanted to stay inside that existing footprint as much as possible. One, just for the cost feasibility. If you talked about adding lanes on a corridor like this, the cost would be pretty astronomical. And also the impacts would be incredibly significant with the homes and businesses there. So these are all considerations that we needed to take into play. And we also needed to just make sure that we were identifying reasonable and feasible options. Purpose and need is very important for the project. Purpose and need is basically why. Why are you doing this project? So 2 big needs here for Flex Road, that congestion that I just talked about, which includes all of the bottlenecking and the low speeds, the congestion, the delays. Other big one on this front is, of course, safety. We do have a lot of high crash rates along the corridor. So the purpose of the project, we want to increase that efficiency. And not only do we want to increase the efficiency, we want to increase the reliability. So having a more reliable system means that drivers have a better understanding of what to expect when they're going to use the Borman. Also very big here, and it's always a key focus for NDOT, we want to make sure that we are improving safety. Another thing that I wanted to touch on briefly before I hand off to Toby and talk more about the improvements is the TSMO option that we talked about, that transportation systems management and operations strategy. When I talked about how tight the Borman is with the development right there by the roadway and staying within the existing footprint, that really had us taking a look at these TSMO strategies, a long list of those strategies that we looked at to identify the best options that we thought would work well together to make the biggest difference on the Borman. And so that's where we are in the process. We have several options that we think are going to make a real difference here, and Toby will be running through that list. Other thing to keep in mind here is that construction on Flex Road is getting closer. On the TSMO front and the construction there, it's going to begin early next year and last about 3 years. Finally, we wanted to talk about environmental impacts. It's always important when we talk about a project and improvements. What impacts are we talking about with any alternatives? Nice thing that we can say here is that the impacts are fairly minimal with Flex Road. So this table gives you an idea of that. Less than half an acre of permanent right-of-way and less than 2 acres of permanent wetland impacts in Indiana. And there is mitigation involved for any impacts that we do have. And again, I would direct you to that draft environmental document that is housed on the project website. All of this information is listed in detail, so you can do that closer look at any area of interest that you might have. And with that, we're going to get to more of the meat and potatoes of what's going on and turn things over to Toby.
Thank you, Mindy. Yeah, I'm going to talk about the anticipated improvements along the corridor that Mindy mentioned. What we're doing is combining all the TSMO strategies, some pavement rehab, and some interchange modifications at 2 locations along the corridor to improve and meet the purpose and need of this project to improve safety and improve mobility. So we narrowed it down to these 6 TSMO strategies that we're going to use along the corridor. You can see them here. I'll go through them individually. The first one is the ramp metering, which actually controls the frequency of the vehicles coming on and on the interstate. So it looks for those gaps in the mainline traffic and allows cars to get into those gaps and merge safely within the existing corridor. Variable speed limits basically can be adjusted. The speed limit along the corridor real time. When there's a issue or congestion, it can be slowed down well in advance to make the queues flush out much better than if they weren't there. Dynamic lane control will be able to open and close any of the lanes within the corridor. when there's an incident, we'll be able to do that. Dynamic shoulder lanes is the one added capacity aspect of the job. We are going to convert the inside shoulder into a dynamic shoulder lane, and that will be used during the peak hours of the day, and will be turned off other times and during certain weather events, etc. So that's going to be great and add that capacity one lane without widening the roadway. Event management strategies are being still considered and looked at. How do you get incidents off the road and out of the way quicker and safer? So those things are being considered, not yet figured out yet. And then overall improved signing and queue warnings that our signs will have that will tell drivers what's going on, and maybe they can plan their route differently if they know this information. So here's a map very similar to Mindy's, but it does highlight these different aspects of the job from those TSMO strategies. The one thing I will add is that the first 5 miles of the job from the Indiana border east into Indiana, we are improving the pavement and doing patching along that corridor. So the concrete restoration portion of the job, and then we're implementing all these strategies here that you can see. So looking at the gantries, these are placed about every half mile within the area. What this does is give that real-time updates to the drivers, and this is just a sample or a mock-up of what this gantry may look like. It's a lot larger than a normal DMS message sign, and a lot more flexibility with it. As you can see, we have the X's and arrows pointing to lanes being open and closed. We can portray the speed limits. We can portray exit onlys and queue messages or any kind of message we need at the top of it as well. Another look at that, you can see where this is just an example of we have an incident on the right. We need to close those lanes, and we're running the dynamic shoulder lane on the inside to get traffic around these areas. And then you see the thing telling them 2 miles ahead, well in advance of what's happening ahead within the corridor. Here's what the interchange improvements are going to look like. So if you look at Grant there at the left of your screen, you'll see that right now there's an auxiliary lane from Grant to Broadway where you can get on entrance and exit. This is only in the eastbound direction. For what we're going to do is include that lane and continue it through Broadway all the way to I-65. So you're kind of adding a little bit of capacity from Grant on, and it's going to be a little bit of widening. But when we do that, we need to adjust some of the ramps at Broadway. And so look a little closer at it here at Broadway. We're going to remove that existing northbound entrance ramp to eastbound there, and we're going to combine that with the existing loop ramp. So both movements from Broadway are going to get on the interstate at that loop ramp location. And what this does is it provides better, a lot longer acceleration and a lot safer merging onto the roadway. And that also allowed us to get that 5th lane through the whole interchange that was coming from Grant. So we continue widening to the east, and it goes all the way to the I-65 southbound exit. And right now that currently is only 2 lanes. We're going to make that 3 lanes. And even the 3rd lane that's in the middle there is going to be an option lane. So it's going to be one of the through lanes you can continue on, or you can exit and be that 3rd lane on I-65. We're also going to continue the dynamic shoulder lane through this area as well. So we're maximizing the number of lanes through here to help with the congestion and the safety along here. Some of the blue dots there are some of the gantries that are going up, but that will give these messages throughout the corridor. So what we've done, we've broken up this job into 2 kind of buildable units. The first one is what we're calling the fiber optics buildable unit, where we want to get all the proposed fiber optics in. We do have an existing corridor that is already in place that we're going to replace all that fiber optic cable. But then we're going to, on the north side, mainly on the north side, put in all new conduit and all new fiber optics so that all the systems and all the signs, everything can be tied together, and it will be spoken or central location will be the Gary TMC is where the information will go to and be able to control all the signs and everything out there. Replacing those cables provides that redundancy so that we have two main backbones that if one goes down, we have the other one. So it's a really good kind of backup system for this system, for these signs that'll be telling traffic to do a lot of different things. This construction for this fiber optics is planned for this fall 25 and will go through summer of next year. It will have minimal impacts to traffic as it's all on the outside and maybe some shoulder closures, et cetera, but most of the traffic will not be impacted by this first buildable unit. But when we get into the second buildable unit, which builds all the other stuff, the concrete restoration pavement, all the gantries, everything else within the project, we are going to try to maintain 4 lanes in each direction on the Borman most of the time. We will do some down to 3 lanes in the middle of the night, overnight work, etc. So those instances will occur as well. And we will have some 20-minute closures. Those are typical on projects like this where we need to erect those overhead gantries and we need to have all the traffic out from under it. So there will be some 20-minute closures. Like I said, that'll be in the middle of the night and will hopefully have minimal impact on the traffic and flow of traffic there. We know that the I-65 exit ramp is a big movement, so we are going to maintain 2 lanes of traffic on that. That's the existing configuration now, so that will hopefully help in that congestion during construction as well. As you know, in this corridor, there are a lot of ramps, a lot of interchanges, et cetera, so we are going to do some strategic ramp closures. Not only are we doing some pavement rehabilitation on the ramps that are going to require closures, but just to maybe close something that's going to have traffic coming in and causing a lot more capacity issues that we thought during an MOT phase. So there are going to be some closures, short-term closures. You're going to see some exit ramps being closed for longer. In addition to the ramps, you're going to see some local roads where we're putting in our conduit that we will have like boring machines doing that work that will have some impact on the local roads as well. So shoulder closure, short-term lane closures anticipated, like I said, for that fiber optic part. So I'll hand it over to Mindy to finish up with the TSMO examples.
Thanks so much, Toby. I appreciate it. All right, we already hit on what TSMO is short for. We talked about the set of strategies that we're going to use and really want to zero in on the fact that we are working to maximize the efficiency and safety of that existing transportation system. So here you see again some more examples like Toby walked through of what some of those TSMO strategies are. We're also going to hit on some of the spots where we already have those TSMO strategies in place. So this slide here shows you where some of those examples are. Just this past year in Indianapolis, they started using ramp metering and also they started using variable speed limits. And we are seeing the difference that's making in those spots where we have the variable speed limits in place and we are slowing down traffic to reflect what's actually going on with the road on the roadway, whether that's a weather event, whether that's construction, whether that's a crash. We're slowing down traffic, and we are seeing that when we do that, that hard braking that can lead to so many problems has already been reduced 60%, and that's really going to have an impact on improving safety because that hard braking can lead to some real issues and safety issues there, and unfortunately, it can lead to some crashes. Also, some other examples here are listed where we do have TSMO strategies in place. I want to make sure and mention, even though a couple of these examples include tolled roads with both the Indiana Toll Road and the Illinois Tollway, no tolling is planned for the Borman. The gantries are simply used for that digital signage that Toby hit on, and that's for relaying information to drivers. So no tolling is planned here on the Borman. Also, we have ramp metering in Chicago. So people who are in the area and driving through Chicago have likely seen that in play. And we'll talk more about that Michigan example in just a little bit. One of the things we want to do is make sure when we talk about new strategies sometimes it's easy for people to be skeptical and wonder if they're really going to make a difference, especially when we do have some limitations on what we're able to do here. And we do think by layering all of these strategies, it will make a difference. And we want to point to some of these examples where TSMO strategies have been in place for some years now and the difference they're making. So here in Minnesota, in the Twin Cities area there in the metro, they have ramp metering in place for over 210 miles. And they say every year that's saving drivers more than 2.5 million hours. So a very big difference there just by having that ramp metering in place and helping to control traffic entering the interstates and expressways there when it's most appropriate for them to do so, rather than having everybody try to cram in and get on there at once and cause potential issues. Also, you have a lot of savings with gas, and when you save gas as well as saving on the economy there with the gas, you also have lower emissions, which can be a benefit. Information is power, and drivers in South Dakota say they appreciate having a better idea of what to expect. So we're using that overhead signage to share key messages, and that is affecting behavior then. Drivers are taking notice, and most say they feel a lot better just having the information. They feel more prepared. They can plan accordingly, whether that is the timing of their trip or whether they decide to take another route, or maybe they decide to exit earlier. And we already talked about the reduced emissions and the benefits there. Couple of things here. We mentioned Michigan, and maybe some folks who've been on the US 23 flex route there in Michigan. They have TSMO strategies in place there, improving travel times by 45%. So that's a real difference. In Washington, they have variable speed limits, and they have that dynamic lane control that Toby talked about. They're seeing a reduction in both weekday and weekend crashes, but the number is even more significant on the weekend. And most people think that's because on the weekend, you have more people driving through the area who don't know it as well. They're not on it each and every day like your weekday drivers. And so they're benefiting from the information we're giving them. They are getting information on when to slow down. They're getting information about lanes available, and they are better able to react. And that's leading to safety improvements there. But all of the key benefits there, no matter what state, where you're talking about, where they have been deployed, for how long, it all comes down to those key benefits of safety, reliability, and efficiency, which is exactly what we're going for with the Flex Road project. And that's going to take us to next steps. All of these things we have talked about tonight, but sometimes it's just nice to see a simple timeline on what to expect. So we're here at the summer draft environmental document being available to the public for review. We're here at our public hearings, and our formal comment period is underway. All of those responses will be in that final environmental document that we'll post late this year. Toby already talked about that fiber optic work beginning this fall. Again, should be minimal impacts on traffic with that fiber optic work. It's expected to largely be contained to the shoulders there, and then construction on the TSMO improvements, getting those gantries in, is going to happen early next year and take about 3 years. We would highly encourage you to check out the website. Every item that we have shared tonight. So we had a handout for those folks who were in person. We had many boards that people were able to take a chance and look at and have conversations with project team members. So all of those boards, the handout, the comment form, this recording of the streaming presentation from tonight, everything will be available on the website, indianaflexroad.com. So if you have friends, neighbors, coworkers that might be interested in this project and didn't have a chance to join one of the public hearings, that's a great resource to send them to, is on the website. And also posted on the website, we have a project overview video that will also give you a flavor of what's going on with the project. That runs about 14 minutes. That's Toby and myself as well. But it's a good overview of what the project is. And again, taking a closer look at those improvements. I would encourage you, if you haven't done so already, sign up for those email or text updates. You can choose what's convenient, most convenient to you. You can choose both and get the updates by both email and text. Make sure you're always informed. And it is a good idea, especially as we're getting closer to construction. We will be using these same channels to communicate information. And that's when a project very much becomes real to drivers. When you hit construction and when they are impacted by any restrictions, and they need to know that ahead of time. So all of that that information will be shared on these same channels. So it's a really good opportunity. If you haven't done so already, sign up for those project updates. They will benefit you. And again, we don't pelt you with a lot of information. We just give you the key information that we think is going to be of most interest to you. And social media, both Facebook and X are channels that we utilize. We share a lot of different information. It will be the traffic information when construction begins, but also kind of a behind the scenes. What are you seeing? What's happening? How are you going to benefit from the work that's underway? So we will share a lot of information that might be of interest to folks. And with that, this is the portion of the hearing where we're going to talk again about providing feedback and doing so before or through Friday, August 8th. Make sure that you provide feedback for it to be part of that formal comment period and recorded in the final environmental document along with a response. So you see the channels there. You can upload a copy of the comment form. You can just submit a comment, and you can share your feedback if you are joining us through the streaming option tonight through the comment section there. Use the Q&A function on the streaming option to leave a comment. Now, in the room tonight, we do not have anybody who has signed up to deliver a verbal comment, which is more than fine. We do have comment forms that people are able to complete and leave with us. So we won't have any verbal comments tonight, but I do want to say for folks who are joining us with the streaming option, we're going to keep this up for just a couple of minutes after we conclude the presentation, which we're very close to doing, just in case you want to use this opportunity to leave a question or comment. Please do so. We'll leave it open and up for just a few minutes here to give you a chance to do so. And again, if you want to take a little more time with the information, you can do that and come back to the project website, indianaflexroad.com, and leave a comment there. Just make sure that you do so on or before Friday, August 8th. With that, that is going to bring us to the end of our presentation. You can find each and every one of those items that I referenced on the project website, and we hope you will go there to check out more information on this project that is really going to improve a lot of commutes in this area. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us this evening.